Welcome to Soul Synergy Network. I'm Dr. Irma Elisheva Diaz. Today's episode touches a tender and often unspoken corner of the human experience, asking why in the midst of grief. When we lose someone or when life doesn't go the way we hoped or prayed for, one question echoes louder than the rest. Why? Why did this happen? Why now? Why them? Why didn't God stop it? I asked that question and questions like that when I lost my mother in June of 2005. I wanted to know why she had to leave when she did and how she did. At the time, the question seemed reasonable. And as time went on, I realized that I was not going to get the answers I wanted. Or further, I wasn't going to get any answers. I also learned that it is normal to ask questions when we lose a loved one. As long as we're able to acknowledge all of that, some questions don't have easy answers, and some may never be answered at all. And yet, the asking itself is absolutely needed when we're navigating through grief. In today's episode, we will explore the human need to ask why, how to cope when answers don't come, what ancient traditions say about wrestling with the unknown, and how we might begin to live with mystery without losing our hope. For someone that has never suffered a loss, the question why may sound futile, but for someone grieving a loss, it is second nature to ask questions. It is not a lack of faith, and it is not always rebellion or anger. It is the voice of a soul trying to find footing in a world that no longer makes any sense. I have counseled the bereaved for many years, either individually or in groups, and I have been the one grieving as well. And I can tell you, you don't have to be religious to realize that you cannot approach life and death without spirituality. When we are grieving, our soul gets involved with the process, and we find ourselves asking why. Some might say they are simply letting their voice be heard throughout the universe as they ask why, and others will say that they are asking God. But either way, this is a spiritual question, and it comes from deep within that part of your essence that is touched by grief. So asking why is part of being fully human. So then, what do we do when the answer never comes? When the heavens stay quiet? We may be tempted to blame ourselves. We may be tempted to blame others, or to spiral into despair, or even to create false narratives just to fill the silence, or to find ourselves with elevated anger. But there is another path: to honor the question itself, to sit with the questions why as if it is a sacred guest in our hearts, and to allow it to transform us, not to torture us. The ancient mystics taught that mystery itself is a teacher. Unanswered questions are not voids, they are like wombs, not empty, but they form something that is unseen. Maybe not an answer, but perhaps a new kind of strength, a deeper compassion, a more expansive soul. So here are a few gentle practices for living with the unanswerable. Number one, it's always important to name the question. Name it, write it down, speak it aloud. Why did this happen? Give voice to your question so it doesn't fester in silence. That's part of healing. Number two, there's always sacred journaling. Some people don't like journaling, but once you get started with it, it's very therapeutic. Keep a grief journal, not to fix anything, but just to hold space, to record your whys, your tears, your prayers. Number 3, create a why box. I heard somebody say they found a small box and they wrote each question on a slip of paper and they placed it inside the box. And this became an offering or an ongoing conversation with God. Number 4, talk to a safe person. Sometimes you don't have that in your life, but most of the time you do. And you can go to a chaplain, you can go to a counselor, you can go to clergy, your pastor, a friend who won't try to fix you or fix it, but will simply listen and hold space for you and validate you. Number 5, reframe the narrative. I'm big on that. You may never find the answer to why, but perhaps you can ask, what now? Who have I become because of what has happened to me, to my family? How can I carry the memory of the loss of my loved one forward? Grief invites us into what I call the theology of mystery. In this space of mystery, faith is not certainty. It's the courage to trust, even when we don't understand. It is the evidence of things unseen. Hope is not a promise that things will make sense. It's the belief that love still exists. Spiritual growth isn't climbing higher. It's allowing yourself to be present in the valley. So if you remember the story of Job in the Bible, for example, there's something profound and often overlooked. Job never got an answer. After losing everything, his family, his health, his wealth, Job demanded to know why. Why did this happen? Why the suffering? Why the loss? But instead of receiving an explanation, Job was met with presence, a voice, a whirlwind, a divine encounter. You see, God responds not with reasons, but with revelations of wonder, of mystery, and the vastness of existence. Job asked for answers, and what he received, get this, was presence. And that often is how life meets us. We demand explanation for our pain, our setbacks, our unanswered prayers, yet the universe or the divine doesn't always answer with clarity. Instead, we're invited into an encounter, a reminder that we are not alone in the unknown. Presence doesn't solve the mystery, but it transforms the experience of the whole thing you're going through. It anchors us. It reminds us that beyond every why is a who, a deeper connection that carries us when knowledge fails. So I propose to you that maybe the healing is not always in the answers, but in knowing we are seen, that we are held and accompanied, even in the whirlwind. When we are hurting, when we can feel our heart falling apart, presence is the answer. If you are in a season of asking why and feel like the silence is unbearable, know this: losing a loved one is spiritual. You cannot run from it, even when you try. When you are really subconsciously asking for what you really need is presence. You need to know there is something greater than you, something bigger, something more powerful than everything. Because it is a spiritual season when we grieve. Presence becomes the answer. You're not alone in your question. You're not wrong for asking it. And even if no words return from the sky, you're being held in the sacred arms of mystery. So let your why become a prayer. not one that demands a reply, but one that keeps your heart open to healing. However, remember, the journey doesn't stop at asking why. Why do we lose the ones we love so deeply? Why does life at times feel so cruel or unpredictable? What happens when the answers don't come? What happens when the weeks become months and the months become years and still the silence remains? This is where we go deeper. After time, this is the territory of asking not just as a plea for answers, but as a way of living with the unanswered. When the why remains elusive, we must learn to ask different questions, not to replace the pain, but to grow alongside it. We learn to explore the lingering ache of unresolved grief, the weariness of soul fatigue when silence persists, how to build a life that honors the loss without being imprisoned by it, and the unexpected gifts that can grow, not in spite of the mystery, but within it. Unanswered questions are like shadows. They follow us, stretching across years and memories. But here's a sacred truth. Shadows only exist where there is light. Somewhere within us, light persists. The soul that does not cease shining simply because the mind does not understand. It keeps radiating quietly, waiting for the heart to catch up. In this part of the journey, we learn that asking is not just about seeking information. Asking is how the soul stays awake. It's how we keep breathing in the face of heartbreak. It's how we let grief change its form from a wound to a wisdom, from an ache to an offering. So as we continue, I invite you, don't be afraid to ask. Ask out loud. Ask in your journal. Ask with your tears. Ask in your silence. Even if the heavens remain still, every question you ask carves a deeper space within you, making room, not just for answers, but for presence, for transformation, for a soul that refuses to grow numb. This is the heart of your loss, to keep the soul in motion, to let the heart ask even in the dark, and to trust that even the asking is a form of healing. I want to thank you for joining me today on Soul Synergy Network. If you are carrying questions that remain unanswered, if your soul is still asking you why, remember, you're not weak, you're not lost, you're human. And being human means living in the tension between knowing and not knowing, between understanding and mystery. Let the asking be a part of your healing as presence comes into your grief. Let it remind you that your heart is still alive, still reaching, still capable of love, even when it hurts. There's no shame in not having all the answers. Sometimes the sacred work is not in solving the mystery, but in learning how to live fully within it. And so I bless you with this thought. May your questions keep your soul tender. May your grief shape you, but never harden you. And may you discover that even in silence, you're being held. I thank you for spending this time with me today. If this episode spoke to your heart, I invite you to share it, leave a comment, or email us at soulsynergynetwork@gmail.com, or you can visit our website, which is on the screen. And don't forget to subscribe, so together we can continue the journey of soul, spirit, and healing. Until next time, keep asking, keep breathing, and keep living. This is Soul Synergy Network signing off. Be well.